right, so we came to talk about veganism. All right, so if you want to start by introducing yourself.
My name's Connor.
Connor.
I'm Gavin.
Gavin.
I'm Logan.
Logan. All right, Connor, Gavin, Logan. All right, awesome. So what intrigued you about talking about veganism? What's going on?
I don't know. Just I like eating meat. I don't know.
Okay.
I actually had a couple questions for you, so
Sure.
I don't know if we're gonna get into those later, but
Yeah,
just
okay.
curious.
I'm interested in like other people, how they think and about their eating habits and stuff.
Okay. All right. So I guess first thing I'll start with is defining veganism a little bit clearer.
Are you
so,
vegan?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. I've been vegan for over 6 years. So veganism is an ideology that rejects the commodification of animals, right? So that means we don't use them for food, clothing, entertainment, etc., right? And one of the reasons why we can very clearly take that stance is because it's unnecessary and not needed in today's society. We don't need meat to be healthy. You don't need animal products to sustain your life. And that's why it's a much clearer kind of line in the sand. So I guess when it comes to your position where you like meat, right? Would you say that liking something is a justification for the murder and slaughter of billions of animals every year?
Well, I think that meat's a good source of protein, and not having that source of protein and macros in a diet is gonna hinder muscle growth, and I think that the killing of animals that are already gonna be on the way out of a natural cause for human gratification is a good trade-off.
Okay, all right, so a couple of things there, right? First off, on a vegan diet, so whole food, plant-based, you could get all the protein you need from lentils, chickpeas, black beans, whole grains. You could count your macros, I do it, right? You can get all the nutrients. All of the major health organizations state that a vegan diet is healthy at all stages of life. So that's the WHO, World Health Organization, the Academy of Nutrition Dietetics also have that position. So that's the first thing, right? If you're worried about macros, if you're worried about protein, you can get plenty of protein on plant-based diet. There's also plant-based protein shakes. So if you are, if you're a protein shake guy, you can still do that, right? The second thing, you mentioned killing animals when they're on their way out. So actually, that's not what happens at all. So with animals, we breed billions of animals strictly to kill them for food, right? So it's not like we are killing animals that are on their deathbed or that are elderly. We actually kill them years prematurely to what their full lifespan is. So we breed them, we kill them after about between like 12 and 24 months. Cows are usually slaughtered about 18 months on average. And any babies that they have are of course taken away and slaughtered or used for milk. So it's not like we are doing these animals a favor, right? And in terms of the protein, I guess we go back to that, it sounds like the biggest thing is convenience, right? Well, this meat conveniently fits into my macros. Would you say that convenience is a justification for the murder and death of billions of animals?
I think that instead of counting lentils and chickpeas like you were saying, the convenience of the meat is a lot easier to count than counting all the chickpeas, lentils, etc.
So, sorry, go ahead.
I would like to say, also, in a perfect world, nobody would do that. We'd all stick to this, but to take out convenience as a whole and to not have that as a main factor, I mean, that's gonna be a factor no matter what. It's never, in a perfect world, we'd all be doing that, but convenience is obviously a thing that we're gonna have to take into account.
Yeah, I feel like I just grew up in a family and an environment where protein came from meat and animals, and like all the protein shakes has animal stuff in it. So if I cut all that out, I think I would have a hard time not fitting in, but like finding people to relate with about all that stuff, like eating separately. Like when my family makes dinners, I'd have to have like a separate meal because I just grew up with all that.
Yeah, and I totally can understand how what is socially normal for you guys and what you're used to, right? That's what everyone's used to. I ate meat for 18 years of my life, right? And not just meat. When?
What made you change to eating on a vegan diet?
Well, so what made me change was connecting the logic of how we treat sentient animals and my position of, okay, I do not want sentient animals to be hurt, to die, to be used needlessly, and I don't need to, right? And there's also this contradiction where people value some sentient animals like dogs or cats, right? They would never want to see their dog killed for food, they would never want to see their cat killed for food, but they will gladly do that for cows, chickens, and pigs. And I'll get into that, but yeah, it sounds like convenience, or the social norm and the convenience is a big one, right? But that was going to lead me to my next question, actually. Let's say, do you guys have dogs or pets?
Yeah.
All right. So let's say, and really quick, the convenience factor is really only an issue when it comes to eating out, probably, and maybe with your families. Because at the grocery store, it's just about moving an aisle over. So instead of getting regular meat, you get the plant-based meat. Instead of getting meat or other animal products, you get the vegan, like soy milk, almond milk. You get chickpeas, black beans. So at the grocery store, it is no more inconvenient, right? Eating out, obviously, because there's just more animal products and our diet is based on animal products currently, that is a challenge. But again, that goes back to the question of, is your convenience, right? Is sacrificing a little bit of social life or sacrificing a minor inconvenience of not getting the meal you might have preferred previously worth contributing to the death of billions of sentient animals every year?
Can I just ask something? I'm not educated on it, so I'm just wondering, as far as financially, how does that differentiate between supermarkets and getting meat products and animal-based products?
Great question. So on average, a whole food plant-based diet, so not the vegan mock meats, like the fancy stuff, vegan stuff, a whole food plant-based diet is about 30% cheaper, right? Because you're relying on some of the cheapest foods in the grocery store. Lentils, black beans, pasta, rice, whole grains like breads, all of those are the cheapest foods in the grocery store. Fruits and veggies, if they're fresh, you don't have to buy the full organic fruits and veggies. Any fruits and veggies work. It's still going to be beneficial. And then there's also frozen. I eat a lot of frozen fruit. Frozen veggies are great. So it ends up being cheaper. But even if it wasn't, if it cost the same, I would still say sacrificing that inconvenience to avoid contributing to this moral atrocity is the correct position. But I was going to ask you guys a question. Let's say you went to your friend's house and all they had was rice and beans, or they had dog meat barbecue. Would you guys say, oh, the dog meat fits perfectly in my macros? Or would you guys say, you know what, I think I'll skip the meat, I'll eat the black beans and rice?
Like dog meat?
Dog meat.
Well, I honestly, for what I'm thinking right now, probably try the dog meat, see how it tastes.
Okay.
Since I don't have a connection with the dog, like I feel like it's already dead. Like, I don't support them killing the dogs, but I would try it, see how it is, and probably stick with the beans and the rice.
Okay.
I mean, I love that position. I think you got to try things, right? I think you got to take life as it is, and I definitely try it, but then maybe move on to the rice and beans if I'm not loving it.
Yeah, I think I'm with them on that. You got to try everything at least once, and if I don't have a moral connection with that dog, I'll try it. If I don't enjoy it, I'll move to the rice and beans.
Okay. So all three of you would eat dog, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
For sure. Okay. Now, let's up that a little bit. So let's say you had to pay for somebody to kill a dog, right? So the only way to get this dog meat is you had to give them your money. They go, they slaughter the dog, and then they give you the meat. How about now?
I'm against that now because I have to think about them actually doing it.
Okay.
And I'm paying them to do it. But if it's just they're already pre-made by one of my friends' like parents, I think that's completely different since I didn't pay for it. I didn't know how it got there, like, so.
That's a tricky question for me. I don't know how I feel about that, because is this my only option? Can I have any like normal stuff, or is it just have to be I eat this one dog?
Yeah. So and I'll let you. I'll go step up.
Yeah, I think it's a loaded question. I feel like I won't have a connection with the dog, but I also, like Logan said, have to think about them killing the dog, and if it's a pre-prepared meal, like by one of our friends' parents, I think I can try that, but I don't want to have to think about them killing that dog. And then with what Gavin said, like option-wise, is that like my only option, or what are my options for a meal after that?
Yeah, so it would be your only option in this scenario, but the reason why I asked that question is when we look at cows, chickens, and pigs, right? Specifically, let's compare pigs and cows, right? Pigs are just as sentient, and if you don't know what sentient means, sentient is when you're conscious, when you have your own experience, when you could feel things, right? So that's what separates animals from plants, right? Plants are living, but they're not sentient, right? So, and sentience is why we care about their experience. Otherwise, it wouldn't matter, just like with plants. Pigs are just as sentient as dogs. A lot of them are actually more intelligent than dogs. So the question is, if you would have to think about it, or if in a lot of situations you would refuse to pay to have them murdered, why would you not grant that to the pig, right? What's the morally substantive difference that lets you not even think about the pig's life, but makes you refuse to pay for the dog to be killed?
I think it's because ever since I grew up, they've been like farm animals. Like they have never been pets, never had like personal connections with them. So I feel that would be why I would have the difference in my like, morality to pick eating the cow and the pig over the dog.
Yeah, I think that just dates back to social norms, right? We all are adjusted to dogs being in our lives, not so much pigs. I think that's sort of a different thing, and that's why most people would resonate with having a dog rather than a pig.
Yeah, I'm with them on that. I think that you don't really have a pet pig around your house. Like most families will usually have a pet dog or pet cat or some type of pet. And with pigs, cows, and chickens usually being related with farm animals, I think that it's more of a morality thing.
Okay.
I want to add on to that. Sure. Because if I had pets, if I had like a pet pig or like a pet cow, I had like animals, I would probably be vegan since I have connections with animals and I wouldn't want to have their whole populations getting killed.
So here's my question. So I heard two things, right? I heard personal connection and I heard social norm, right? So I guess I'll address the personal connection first, right? Would you say that not having a personal connection with another sentient animal justifies us doing whatever we want to that animal, right? So I don't have personal connections with a lot of humans, right? But I still want humans to be given the respect and the care that we all should have. I don't have personal connections with a lot of dogs, right? My aunt had a dog, right? But I didn't have a lot of personal connections with a lot of other dogs, right? Does that mean that I should be okay with them being murdered, slaughtered, whatever, right? So personal connection, just because you may not know that certain animal, doesn't mean that we can't empathize and put ourselves in the position of those animals, right? And then when it comes to the social norm, there's been a lot of things throughout history that have been social norms. Women couldn't vote, slavery, World War II with the Nazis. All of those were social norms that were promoted, that were accepted. And when it comes to social norms, we now know that social normality does not equal morality, right? Just because something is socially acceptable doesn't mean it's moral, right? So would you say that social norm is still a good justification for an action?
I don't think it is, no.
Okay.
What I think a social norm is, well, I mean, if it's a norm, there's got to be some justification behind it. There's some people that validate that opinion or belief because it's been the norm. It's the normal. So, I mean, there's definitely got to be some more deeper reasoning, in my eyes, at least.
But does it... Okay.
I think, like, since, like, you brought up past history, someone in power has a norm in their mind, and people just tend to follow them because they think they're right, they have the power, they know what they're saying.
Yeah.
So.
I'd say, but it's different in America because we're a democracy where we have choice and we have voting. So, I mean, I get what you're saying about the power thing in the past, but if we're specifically talking about America, you know, we have democracy. We popularize opinions and votes, and we dictate what social norms are in place.
Yeah, but like I mentioned, the American slave trade was not only a norm, but it was accepted. Like we started, it's called the American slave trade for a reason, right? So at some point, even though, and we did have democracy at that time, we had presidents, right? Even though that was the norm, would you say that that was moral, right? Because obviously in that scenario, I hope we all agree that slavery is not moral. But it was, right, considered moral, right? It was considered okay, right? So similar to that, you mentioned a person in power. When you were 4 years old, you didn't go out and slaughter a pig yourself, right? So you had people, either whether it's your family, whether it's the government, whether it's the food industry that we have, that were specifically feeding you this food, right? So this is not, I don't want you to like, yes, we live in a democracy, but there are still socially accepted things that are not moral, and they just so happen to be still accepted, and this is probably the most immoral out of all of them. So I guess from this point, what other justification would you have to consume or use any animal products, but we'll focus on consuming them?
I liked your justification of the nutrients side of things. I think that was good. Thing is, in all practicality, are people going to be able to take the time out of their day, and even financially? I know you said it was 30% cheaper, but if we count in all the other stuff, I imagine it gets more expensive. And if you're doing that, and I don't think there's a whole lot of gain to be had for the individual specifically. I think you got to be a very selfless person to do something like this, because you're benefiting the environment and benefiting animals, but as far as you yourself, there's not much personal gain to be had, at least in my eyes. And then again, I am uneducated about the subject. But
Sure.
I think that it comes down to, I guess, like a population thing, with all the animals saying we don't end up using from meat, and everyone turns to be vegan, with like how he said, like, selflessness. I feel like if everyone turns to be vegan, and that then has all those billions of animals, how you're saying, that get slaughtered every year, then I feel like we'll be kind of competing in a sense with the animals and every other person, because there's like 9 billion people in the world. Say those 9 billion people, and then say there's like 9 billion cows, plants, or chickens and whatever, as an animal. Say we're now competing as in a vegan plant-based diet. I think that it's gonna start hindering the amount of food and everything around the world.
Yeah, I agree with them. You know,
Okay,
that's all I got.
So I'll address I'll address your point first, right? So I would actually argue that this position is not a selfless position. It's actually it should be the baseline position. Sorry, this isn't a selfless position. It should be the baseline position, right? So just how not contributing to, let's say, child abuse is a baseline position, right? You're not a good person for not abusing a child. You're doing what's expected of you as a moral human to not abuse a child. Same thing here. By not abusing other sentient animals, you're not being selfless. You are doing the baseline, right? Like a virtue, like doing something selfless would be donating your money, right? Giving something of yours to someone who's in more need. Sacrificing your time, something like that. But just not committing an action, I would argue, is not selfish. It may seem that way because of the society we live in, but not committing something is different than going out of your way to benefit something else. Yeah.
Do you think that people who eat meat are in the wrong?
So I don't think that people that eat meat are bad people or are necessarily immoral people. I think that a lot of it comes down to education or lack thereof. And obviously, again, I ate meat and animal products for 18 years. I bought leather, I went to zoos, so we only know what we know. But I would say that if you are able to be given the education and able to think about it, and you don't have a justification for your actions, and then you continue to contribute, then yeah, I'd say you have definitely inconsistency in your morals. But so that's my I wanted to address that point, but to go off of the population. So actually, it's a lot more than 9 billion. So we breed and slaughter, with sea animals, it's in the trillions, right, every single year. Just on Thanksgiving alone, it's 46 million turkeys on that one day, right? Not forgetting the rest of the year. So, and the reason why we have such a large population, again, is because we artificially breed them. So we artificially inseminate cows, so we put the semen in them. They're not mating naturally. Same thing with chickens, same thing with pigs.
Genetic modification too.
Exactly. Absolutely. So they're made to produce significantly more milk, significantly more eggs, more children, etc. So a lot of that is actually done by our own pace, right? So if there was a gradual shift to veganism, obviously the world won't be vegan overnight, but with a gradual shift, the population would naturally decrease because we would be breeding them less. The other thing is, right now, I believe it's about 70%, if not a little bit more, of the crops that we grow or the land that we use for the crops are fed directly to the animals we murder, right? So as to your point of the competition, we would actually have more food and more cropland for us to use if we decreased the breeding and didn't have to feed all that food to the animals.
About that point.
Sure.
So if you said that those 70% of the crops that we grow are fed to those animals that we slaughter, then would that mean that we're not going to be growing that food and those crops if the animals are being slaughtered?
No, so that would mean that we use that to feed to the animals for us to kill them, right? So that means that if we decreased what we do to animals and eventually went vegan, we would be able to repurpose that land, hopefully, and grow it for usable crops for us, which would ultimately give us more food security, if we're talking about whole food plant-based, right?
I just want to add one more thing, and then we have to go.
Yeah, sure, no problem. I appreciate the conversation.
If I was educated with veganism, vegan and meat eating when I was younger, and I grew up with two different sides of it, I think I would have a better chance of going vegan if I heard about all the stuff happening with all the animals. But I wasn't thinking about that because I hadn't heard other sides from it.
Yeah.
So if I grew up with the education of that, I definitely would try vegan.
Look, and it's all about education. I'm assuming you guys are in high school, is that right? Yeah. So obviously you live at home with your parents, but it all starts I don't think of it switch out everything today, right? It starts with one meal, right? Okay, instead of buying the meat at the grocery store, I'm gonna try to hit my macros because I was an athlete in school. I powerlifted throughout college, and I did from when I was 18 to about 22, 21. I was lifting weights, heavy. I was going to the gym. I was counting macros. I get it, but again, that slight sacrifice of switching out beef for a plant-based alternative or beef for rice and beans, chickpeas, that is definitely worth not contributing to a moral atrocity. And if you align with the position of veganism, it's kind of the only thing you could do. Otherwise, you're a hypocrite, right? And I am going to give you guys a resource. On my website, there's resources of how to eat, what to swap out, where to get your nutrients. So I have all of the information for you, and the rest is up to you. But I appreciate the conversation. Does anybody want to add anything last before we go?
Subscribe to the YouTube.
Thank you.
Yeah, just subscribe to the YouTube.
All right, thank you.
Subscribe to the YouTube.
All right, awesome. Thank you guys.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Here, I'll give you Brandon. Cards. So on the back, there's a QR code. You scan it, brings you to the website.